documentary is on the Civil Marriage Protection Act and how Question 6 was passed. We interviewed leaders in this movement and members of the community that were affected by this law.
It was not easy growing up gay just a decade ago, but nowadays it's a little easier. A lot of families were not supportive of their children. Some parents would physically and verbally abuse their children just because they were gay. It took most people a lot of time to come out of the closet because they were afraid of what people might think. There was also a lot of discrimination, and they did not want to be subject to that. Dan Fermancy says in a video chat interview we conducted with him, "I began to feel angry that I was being denied something that was easily granted to murderers in prison." Mary Washington says, "Even in a position where I am discriminated against, I am able to advocate for other people."
I remember during the debate in the House, there was a couple of kids of two moms, and the two moms wanted to pay to have their kids in this private school, okay? And I think one of the children was already in the private school or something like that. They wanted to get the second one in, and usually siblings are accepted. But this school decided they were going to require a marriage certificate for that couple to get their kid in. Well, they couldn't get married. And, and even if they'd produced one from out of state, they would have had something else. So that happened, and they called their delegate, who was not going to vote for same-sex marriage. When she heard that, she spoke up, actually, in a meeting and said, there is discrimination. I thought there wasn't, but there is. And it's important, and it's affecting kids.
And so at 16 and 17 years old, that is your life at that point. We didn't have jobs to lose, we didn't have housing to lose, we had each other to lose. And that was more painful, more terrible.
Civil marriage was first brought up politically in 2001 when the anti-discrimination law was passed. This law stated that you could not discriminate against a person if they were gay. Later, in 2006, 19 plaintiffs sued the state of Maryland for the right to marry same-sex couples. The ruling was made by Judge Murdoch, who said that it is a violation of the state constitution to deny same-sex couples the right to marry. The 19 plaintiffs worked hard, yet they did not succeed in their goal because the higher court overruled it. Charles Blackburn was one of the original plaintiffs, and we talked to him and his husband about the ruling.
In January of 2006, Judge Brooke Murdoch came down with an absolutely fabulous decision. Of course, it was immediately appealed to the Court of Appeals, the highest court in Maryland. And in 2007, in a 4-3 vote in one of the worst decisions ever written, the head of the court was embarrassed by it. They said, we didn't need any help. We had a great deal of influence as gays, and that they didn't see the need to defend our rights.
We, started in the courts and lost in the courts. Then we went to the legislature in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and then finally 12. And then, as is the case with any law in Maryland that gets passed, if people can get enough signatures to put it to referendum, then it will be put to referendum. So this law was put to referendum, and we formed a campaign and raised $6 million and took the case to the voters of Maryland. And in November, almost 53% of Marylanders said yes to Question 6.
To pass the law, the state of Maryland needed 71 votes from state officials and succeeded with 72 successful votes. We interviewed 3 state delegates, Mary Washington, Luke Clippinger, and Maggie McIntosh. They provided a lot of good insight to all of the inside work of the vote and convincing the general public to vote in favor of Question 6. It was very difficult because a lot of people thought it would ruin the marriage between a man and a woman or were opposed to it for religious reasons. Leah Gilmore helped Maryland gain a lot more supporters since she was involved with the Maryland Black Family Alliance. A majority of the supporters were gay themselves or had friends and family who were gay or were involved in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer community.
Involvement with the Civil Marriage Protection Act? In 2012, I was the House leader on the floor, the House whip for the bill. So I counted how many delegates were voting for it, and I tried to get a few more votes for it, worked closely with the Speaker of the House and the Governor's Office and Equality Maryland and a number of other people in helping to get the votes together on the House delegates floor. In 2011, we didn't quite get enough votes.
That was, I think, our biggest challenge. It was first getting, I think, in the legislative process, getting people to understand that it was civil marriage. That it was not saying to the church across the street here, you have to marry gay people.
Not only did we have to, convince, people in the legislature, we had to convince our neighbors and our friends and our co-workers.
There were many leaders in the Civil Marriage Protection Act. Some of them were officials and delegates, and some were just ordinary people who wanted to make a difference. These people were leaders because they helped lead the way to equal marriage and left a legacy that allows people to marry who they choose and receive the equal financial benefits of marriage, such as filing joint tax returns or getting on each other's health care plans.
There was a young man who was Page, and he was there from Garrett County, very rural county, and he came up to me and he said, I just want to meet you. And I thought, why would a kid from Garrett County want to meet me? And I looked up and I said, hi. And he said, I'm gay. And he said, I'm going to get out of Garrett County. And he did. And he ended up going to Washington College over in Chestertown. And when he was the president of the Gay and Lesbian something or other club over there, he invited me over to speak, But he felt very alone where he lived, and it meant something to him to have me come out and talk about it. There really was a lot of points in which, people your age got involved. I mean, I have to tell you, I got letters from young people who were in junior high school or grade school that, said, look, I have two dads, or I have two moms, or, my aunt, or my uncle,
Yeah.
And so it was really heartwarming, I have to tell you, to get that kind of support.
The major change, I think, that switched it to 52% were two African-American Baptist ministers who both felt that marriage should be between a man and a woman, but they did not feel that this view should be imposed on everyone and that a civil marriage should be allowed.
How did you feel finally being able to get married?
It was a joyous occasion, wasn't it? We had 250 people at First Unitarian Church. It was the most amazing feeling of support and love that we've ever experienced. For years I had been singing the song from West Side Story, Somewhere There's a Place for Us. And I'd been singing it with great poignancy and with great longing, finding a place for us. And instead that day, with our fists raised, we sang it in triumph. There is a place for us.
The night that the law went into effect, I was at City Hall when Mayor Rawlings Blake started to do some of the first weddings. I didn't know any of these people getting married, but I was crying like they were my own kids. I mean, because it was just so beautiful to see finally, love prevailing.
Even if I tried, even if I wanted to, my love, she keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm.